Marshall County Election Center at 107 First Avenue, Marshalltown, Iowa. We are called to order. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. County Election Center. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosik,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Okay. Item 4 on our agenda this morning is to approve the agenda. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as printed. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosik,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes. Excuse.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll entertain motions on opening the public hearing on the 22-23 budget, starting at 9:06.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to open the public hearing to consider the budget adoption and certification for fiscal year 2022 and 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Any comments, discussion, or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yep.
Slosik.
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Let the record show the public hearing is open at 9:06. Nan, Madam Auditor, have we received any written comments, questions, or objections that have been placed on file in the County Auditor and Recorder's Office?
We have not.
Okay, and individuals in the meeting? One.
There's 20 in the room.
Yeah, we have to separate us all, so that leaves us with 16.
And 4 online, that's 20 people.
20 people, okay. There were no written objections. We have 20 individuals. Is there anybody that would like to present oral comments, questions, or objections? Anybody online?
At what point do we want to discuss the open items with the budget?
We can either do them now or before we adopt the resolution. You've got 3 questions. When would you like them answered?
Supervisor comment is first on the agenda.
It hit the bottom of the prior page.
Okay, I didn't see that. Well, we'll go to supervisor comments then. Nan sent us an email yesterday. Are you able to put that up on the screen, or you want to just rattle off your questions in order and we'll answer them in order?
Sure.
I don't want to push you on the spot.
I gotta see if I think it's under the board, probably. I think I copied you guys in it. She's pulling it up. I'll see if I can find it.
I've got it here if you want.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
The first one is Jared's increases for the treasurer's office.
Okay. And I don't know what the dollar amount is on that, but that is included in the budget as it currently stands. The dollar amounts. We don't have the forms or anything, but we've got the dollar amount in there as it stands. The other, I think the second question was Mike Stegman.
Yep.
We all missed that during the early budget discussions. He's planning on retiring during this next fiscal year. And I don't know the dollar amount. Did he put?
I think it's 15.9.
15.9. I calculated, it's some overlap and some payout of his vacation. When I calculated currently where he sits on his vacation, that payout is 11,237.85. So just with his current vacation conversion, and now I did not give him the increase, so that would not be with his increase in there. So I should pay
3%.
Yeah.
And you say his last day was when?
I don't think he's turned
not
it in
been
yet.
determined.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not been determined yet.
Okay.
It'll be sometime during this next fiscal
Gave
year.
us a
Okay.
roundabout after the first of the year.
Yeah.
A number of months, but
And
he
I,
has not given us a
and I
date.
believe he needs to get to April. I don't know. There's a time frame he needs to get to for his points and stuff with
Yeah.
Vipers.
Not a clue.
So
That's his decision.
he has prior service too. Oh, yeah. So he's
Okay. And the third one was a,
IT extra.
the IT extra $15,000. So there was, we upped the software line from James and James's budget from 85 to 100 because of the rewrite in DevNet for the receivables. And I think we had gotten a quote, Jarrett, for 25,000 originally from Mike Sager at DevNet. And when you sat there and looked at us moving back into the courthouse with all our software needs and 85,000 becoming 60, that was the conversation during his budget. We were kind of nervous about that.
and that money is in IT's budget.
That's in, yeah, so we upped it from 85 to 100 so that that would leave him 75 for the move back into the courthouse and any other.
Software disappears fast.
Yeah, I was gonna say Adobe Pro needs
For
to be,
example, yeah.
Jesse needs to have Adobe Pro added.
Okay.
That costs money, every little thing we do.
So you're talking about he negotiated at 10,000 less, so rather than 25, they only need 50.
Well, no, we
It's
did,
different.
we did 15 because we just thought he could absorb the 10.
Okay.
But I just thought 25 to absorb in that budget was way too high. Just, especially with the move back to the courthouse.
Wanna start?
I believe our first is an increase with the treasurer's office. Jared, do you want to speak to this at this point?
No, I think I shared everything. I think you have all the information on it that I shared in the last meeting.
Yep. Thoughts?
Well, that 25,000 was really budgeted, and they tell me if I'm wrong, but it was budgeted for the IT needs.
Correct.
Now,
And it was a one-time ad. That increase of 15,000 was a one-time ad. It was going to go back to the 85 unless there was some extenuating circumstances for the following year.
now, okay, now we're crossing over here a little bit in my mind with what
Okay.
Jared's wanting. His budget item for his IT needs was 25,000 also, but he only needed 10, right? So there's 15,000 left.
No, the original quote for the receivables rewrite from DevNet was $25,000.
And that
Okay.
was. in
And that would have
James's.
went into James's budget. Jarrett negotiated that with Mike Sager and got that to, that he would do that for free.
Correct.
So Jarrett was asking for that 15,000 from the IT budget to use for the salaries.
My concern here then is that normally don't jump from that area of the budget to the other area of the budget and say, okay, we're going to use the money that's left over. If it's left over, it generally goes to general budget.
And goes to fund balance.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
And also it is a one-year ad in James's budget. It was not a permanent ad.
Mhm. Okay, now, from your budget experience, can we do this? Because we tried to move some money just to do some things on the tower, and we said, no, you can't be moving money from here to here. Okay.
These are both general basic. So that is something that would be, we could slide across easily.
And a portion of it is in the same service area.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
because of the motor vehicle part is in a different service area. Property tax is in the same service area.
So one is a one-time expense and one is an ongoing expense.
Correct. So I believe Jared had identified some items in his own budget to accommodate for that, and that would be ongoing money that he would save. That's money that is there, but it was there, it would be there permanently.
Mhm.
And I don't know the splits of the dollar amount. Jared got that information to Mary and Maria, so I don't know what the amounts are.
I have mixed emotions about it. The, in listening to comments from Treasury Department people who've left, their overriding reason for leaving was not money. So is money gonna fix it? Probably not. So I've got also some of the bankers didn't talk to me, but came and talked to one of the supervisors and didn't want to use their names and didn't want to use their bank's names. But they said that our salaries in the Treasury Department is several dollars ahead of the salaries in their bank at starting salaries. So I don't know if we're that far off. I don't know. Do you have any information to follow up with? Or?
Well, you're saying that you spoke to some people that have left the treasurers.
Yes,
One
several.
of the options, we could kind of do have Ehlers and Cooney, just because it's a little easier to do it that way and it gets us out of the middle, is have them come in and meet with some of the folks that have left the treasurer's office.
Yeah, I don't think the supervisors want or need or can be involved in this. This is.
You just asked what reason they left and
Yes.
left it at that.
Yes. And did that just to see if we need to have Ehlers and Cooney come in.
I think your thought of Allers and Cooney is an excellent one. We pay them by the month
Yep.
anyway.
Yeah,
Would
right
be
out of my
included,
budget
so
every month, $17.50.
There's no dollars involved unless they travel.
If they come here, which to me, meeting with people a one-on-one is,
That could be a phone thing.
it could be a phone thing, but a one-on-one is a little more personal.
I think that's needed.
It kind of depends in my mind, what the COVID numbers do. I keep hearing Europe's kind of spiked, so it tends to, when Europe spikes, it seems like 3 or 4 weeks later, we spike. I don't know. So we'd have to just investigate the best option that's comfortable for both parties. Whether it's in person or phone or Zoom or whatever. Something about Zoom's a little better when you can see somebody's face.
Let me go at it from a little different angle here.
Okay.
Our starting wage with your people is, I think, 1705.
Correct.
You're trying to hire someone at 1705. Is that one of the lowest paid positions in the county?
It is for starting, yes.
Starting.
I'm a little unwilling to look for some middle ground until we find out that Ehlers and Cooney could find out.
Do we have the time to do that? We don't.
Yeah. The budget needs to be submitted by the 31st of March online, so the decisions have to be made today.
I was the one that the bankers chatted with, and universally, they felt our salary structure was fine. We also discussed total compensation package, especially insurance. The main differences were the banks, because of the federal holidays, had one extra paid day for big holiday pay. The closest bank that came to our structure for total compensation that had to do with health insurance. A single individual would have contributed $203 per month. We're at what, $9? $5.88. The family for these banks, the lowest was $605 a month. And we're at 70.
Yeah.
So total compensation package is something that we've mentioned in the past.
I'm also going to stand corrected. There is other, in other departments, there's a lower starting wage.
Okay.
The same grade position.
The outdated grading, it's actually a higher grade. The grade, this grades are from the 90s. And I will be definitely the first one to admit that the grading structure is very, very broken.
I think I'd like to see us bring in Allers and Cooney and also look at a grading structure before the next budget is done.
Next year's budget.
Absolutely.
You're from,
And go over these for all departments. This is something that
It's
you and I
broken,
have
not,
talked about several times over the years, and it just hasn't gotten done. I think it would be appropriate for us to do it now. Obviously, we can't do it for today's decision, but we can sure look at it for the next year. Now, that's just my thought. Do you concur that that should be a study we should do?
I would like to do something with the others. I guess I would also like to maybe do a little something here at this meeting too. Bill, you're talking about you don't want to see it, don't want to do a middle ground. They're already going to be getting a 3% increase for this coming year. What if we added another 3% to these folks for this interim time that we're going to be visiting Bayless and Cooney? That would be a little start anyway. Maybe take the edge off of this thing a little bit. I think it's got to be a bit of a.
so the 3% would be 1756. Is that what you've got, Jarrett, for
Say that again.
1756 is the 3%. And that's if you, because technically Jarrett's given 3% money and he can divide that amongst folks however he sees fit. It doesn't have to be
Right.
just, 3% for everybody evenly.
Department.
So with what Steve just proposed, that would put the starting wage at 1807.
You want to put that in the
I
form of a
do.
motion?
Yep, I would make a motion then that we add 3% to Treasurer's Department people. How else do I want to say it?
Do you want to say universal clerks or for the entire
Universal
staff?
clerks. I'm sorry.
I did have two other positions that weren't clerks as well, part of that.
And
And the vehicle supervisor as well as the assistant.
how many total by number do you have?
7, would that be 7 people?
I'm trying to think how many people work right now.
Well, and you want to do it for your open ones too.
Yeah, I mean, I have 8 total staff. One's adequately paid, the rest are part of this request.
Okay, so 7 would be,
Part of the motion to increase the starting wage to a certain.
but right now, I think his motion is for the 5 universal clerks, so going to 6%.
That was my original intention. Yes.
Okay, but if we do 5, are you overlooking somebody then that?
Jarrett was
That's why
asking
I
for
asked.
7. Yes, that's a good clarification.
These other positions are Well paid, aren't they, in my? Not remembering correctly.
This is what he has right now for them.
What percentage is that increase?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that so we can continue.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion?
Since I guess we look at this as maybe a little bit of an entry level job, maybe this gives us an opportunity to increase these universal clerks, get them a little closer to the folks that are above them. I think there's a bit of a spread, if I remember right.
With the 7 people, yeah, between the 3% plus, basically, Jared did a market adjustment for the 7 individuals. And that was an 11.66% between the 2 things. So 3% of it was the 3% we did for each department. And I'm just taking that in totals. I'm not looking at it, how he's splitting it out by person. I'm just looking at total. So it's still up to Jared how he wants to divide that out. That would be his proposal is taking his new, he's got a newer employee in there, along with his 2 replacements up to $19.83. And currently they're at $17.05.
I'm going to struggle going after listening to the private sector. That they're having no trouble keeping employees with not the total compensation package that we have. I'm also going to struggle this late in the budget process, treating one group different than the other. We gave everybody 3% at the discretion of the department heads or the elected officials.
This has been a little bit of an open-ended situation here.
And we turned down several other departments' requests for additional funding above and beyond the 3% also. That's where I'm going to struggle with, is treating one department different than the other. That's just my personal thoughts. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Bill?
No.
Okay.
I just, I guess that's my thought. Go ahead.
Roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
No.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton,
No.
On to the second of Nan's questions, which will be the conservation area. This was a amount of money that we need to put into the conservation's budget for the payout for the retirement of the director. And you've got that.
I'm going to
number.
recalculate that number
Okay.
with the 3% increase.
Yeah, I didn't come up with the same thing, so.
We've estimated 15.
Estimated 15. And see, he could continue to accrue time. I think they're kind of thinking of, depending on who gets the position, obviously there'd be a, couple week overlap and then the payout of his vacation. As I'm calculating the payout of his vacation time as it stands now, it's 11,574.
Okay.
And, but it could go up because he's not completely maxed out. So it could go up a bit, and
It would be probably prudent to put in 15. then.
15 would be a safe, and, it's only fair to at least give a couple weeks overlap.
Yep. Couple weeks I can sure deal with.
Yeah, I mean, that's more than fair, and he's going to be taking his vacation. The board has already approved it for him to take his vacation over time, and as there's questions, he'll come back in and assist with that, similar to what Jill Eaton did in community services, so that he can continue to kind of support the department.
That worked out nicely with Jill and helping you out.
Yeah.
And then she was also helping out the gal in Warren County for the region finance stuff. So it was kind of a two-prong thing for her.
I'd say that one's
We just
pretty much
all
a
missed it.
no-brainer. My answer would be yes.
So
The difference is 15.9.
15.9,
15.9.
yes.
15.9.
So I'm sure they've done a lot better calculations on what they're paying out.
And
I
that was
could have
just
missed some.
something that.
We
didn't
all
get
missed
turned
it.
in for the change.
No, it was actually in the verbiage.
But we didn't.
We all missed it,
Okay.
and they didn't
There
talk
wasn't any
about it
form,
the
but
day, and there was no form.
We need forms for every increase and there wasn't one.
There wasn't a
Okay.
form, but it was in his language, and the language, the written document that he gave us,
And we never talked.
and we
about it.
never talked about it. I don't know how we all missed it, but we, yeah.
Want to throw a motion together on that, or do we need a motion or just a yes, yes, and yes?
I think we need a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, I think we're to the
I
motion.
would,
Please make
I,
one.
I would move to add the $15,900 possible payout for Mike Stegman's retirement.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to add 15.9 for the payout. Any further discussion or comments?
Now, this is gonna, we don't know that this is accurate. It might be less.
Mhm,
That's why I put the word possible in there.
Okay. Well, it's there to cover it,
mhm.
and if it doesn't get used, it just goes into the ending fund balance.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Further questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes,
Slosson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
we have one more, which is the $15,000.
That we added in the IT software line item.
And is that going to be a reduction that we do not need, or we adding here?
I don't think it's needed now.
Okay. I would take motions on this item to either leave it or remove it.
At 89, no, it'd be 85.
Oh, okay.
85, okay. I put 75 down.
Well, I would make a motion then to remove. this
Reduce it.
15,000.
Okay.
And then take it to 85,000 for the software line.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reduce that line item by $15,000. Any further discussion or questions or comments? Nobody on Zoom? Okay. Sherry, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. We are on to, are there any other comments on the public meeting under the supervisors portion of the comments? Okay. I know the public is going to see an increase in our budget this year. I think it would be fair to point out the vast majority of the increase in spending came from two distinct areas, approximately 620 some thousand, and I might be off a little bit, is in debt service. That was not previous. And also the 27th payroll that comes to approximately 130,000.
And most of that debt service is for the
Radio
radio
towers.
tower.
Mhm.
That's for our loan. That's our first payment on our loan, second payment on our
Second.
loan.
We had this last
Time's
year.
flying when we're
We had
having
this.
fun.
It's in the current budget.
It's in there.
Yeah, the other big change is just the valuation change. We only gained revenue of 97,000.
Yeah. Virtually flat. You didn't have any increases with any monies coming on from the wind farms. That is done. And we also suffered a small reduction in the commercial property tax credit from the state. We're on a 4-year reduction on that. I think we're in year 2. So what the state giveth, the state taketh away.
Time for you to remodel your homes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You gentlemen have any other comments before we go on? Okay. Are there any staff comments? And we have 20 members of the public either here or on
Still
Zoom.
4.
Are there any members of the public that would like to make public comments? And we received no written comments. Okay. That being said, if there's no further comments, I'll entertain motions to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to close the public hearing at 9:36.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing at 9:36. Any further discussion or questions or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
All right. Following the public hearing, the board will consider adopting the resolution adopting the budget and certified taxes for the fiscal year 2022-2023. This is by resolution. It is resolution number 2022-0016. Adopt budget and certified taxes for the fiscal year 2022-2023. The proposed 2023 budget was published in the Marshall Times, Republican, and the State Center Mid-Iowa Enterprise on March 17th, 2022. And there were 0 written comments
0
received and objections on file in the county auditor and recorder's office. And we have 20 individuals either presenting oral or written comments, questions, or objections at the hearing. Now therefore, all that the county budget for fiscal year 2022 and the county auditor and recorder be authorized to certify and file the budget and as adopted, dated at Marshalltown, Iowa, this 29th day of March, 2022. I'll entertain motions on this adoption of this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to adopt resolution 2022-0016, to adopt budget and certify taxes for fiscal year 2022-2023.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt resolution 2022-0016, which is to adopt the budget and certified taxes for fiscal year 2022-2023. Any further comments, questions, or nothing online? That being said, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. Moving along. We have service awards this morning. 2 of them. We have one to Richard Arment, Engineer Tech 4, Secondary Roads, 5 years. Richard is not with us this morning. I understand there are apologies that he has been displaced in the engineer's office to a much smaller area because during the remodeling of the courthouse, we've had to move some of our staff over there.
It's a closet.
But I
It's a
understand.
closet.
I understand in the closet, everybody was nice enough to pitch together and buy him a poster of a window. So he has a window in his office. So Richard, congratulations on your 5 years of service, and
I'm glad he's out on the
we
road a lot.
apologize for the window, and hopefully we get back in the courthouse here soon and you get a window back in your office.
Mhm.
Second of which this morning is somebody that we've all worked with for very long amount of years, 20 years. Lisa Soter. She's served Marshall County as the Assistant Director of Community Services, sometimes known as mental health and CICS in the region. And
CPC.
CPC. It's, you wear a lot of hats. You've done a great job. Worked years with some fantastic people, and we've all relied on you for a lot of our mental health ideas and questions. And it's been a pleasure to work with you for the last 20 years. Would you like to receive your award? Okay, do you have a particular spot you'd?
Sure.
We have, this is a lot better. Look right there, it's all white. Yeah, don't trip. Yeah, please. Yes.
I guess.
We good?
Good.
Okay. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Moving on to our next item. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We do have a proclamation this morning. We've got Linda Helvelka with us, who is going to read the proclamation before we finalize it. Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding a solution requires input and action from everyone. And whereas our children are the most valuable resources and we will shape the future of our county. And whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health community, and faith-based organization, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. And whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that create strong, thriving children and families. And whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. And whereas prevention remains the best defense of our children and families. Now, therefore, the Marshall County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Marshall County, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating themselves to this task of improving the quality of life for all children and families.
Very well stated. Thank you. Moving on our agenda is the consent agenda. Item 8, approve minutes of March 15th, 2022. Approve the claims as audited and authorize county auditor and recorder to issue payment of the same. The listings of claims paid at this meeting and all other claims paid in the current month will be published as part of the first meeting the following month. Filing a clerk of district court report for February of 2022, general supplemental fund surcharge of $269.07. And we have several manure management plans that have been put in. Dennis Anderson, ID number 62848 at 1832 Main Street Road, Marshalltown, was the annual update. Aaron Borton, ID number 65862 at 1359 140th Street, Clemens, an annual update also. Bill Helvelka, site number 3, ID number 64515 2833 Garwin Road, Marshalltown, also annual update. JT East, ID number 63208 at 2349 290th Street, Haverhill, the annual update also. Marco Pork LP, ID number 61016 at 1131 140th Street, St. Anthony, with changes. And Prestige Farms, P341, ID 67142 at 1422 Davison Avenue, St. Anthony, with changes in documents. This is the end of the consent agenda. I'll entertain motions on approval of this.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the consent agenda as printed.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. The consent agenda is printed. Any further discussion, questions, or comments?
How appropriate that Linda would be here this morning for
I wasn't gonna go there, but it sure kind of fit in. Okay. And the two have nothing to do with one another. Okay. All right. That being said, roll call vote, please, Sherry.
Thompson.
Yes,
Lawson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
that was almost karma.
I know.
Okay, have a personnel change, approved new hire for the sheriff's department, jailer, Daniel McCready, permanent full-time at 1988 an hour with a start date on or after March 29th, 2022. Sheriff, would you speak to this?
You bet. This, Mr. McCready is going to be a replacement for retirement Tom Heil. Mr. McCready also comes from prior military service where he served his country as an MP guarding prisoners. From there, he also served as a dispatcher in a communication center. He also served as a reserve for State Center Police Department and most recently as a code enforcement for the city of Marshalltown. So we're welcoming Mr. McCready aboard and he can be an asset to the sheriff's office. And jail.
I think that's excellent, but I think you left out a recent event that Mr. McCready was a part of.
Yeah.
And he should be recognized.
As a State Center Reserve, he also checked on a motorist that had struck a deer and the car had caught on fire. And he was instrumental in removing those individuals that did not want to get out of the car. With that said, the car did burn to the ground. So his actions and encouragement to get them out of the car did service to the community, not only here, but obviously in Jasper County. So those deserve.
Very much so a quality individual. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the new hire sheriff's department jailer Daniel McCready, permanent full-time, 1988 an hour with a start date on or after March 29th of 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the new hire at 1988 an hour. Any further questions, comments? Or nothing online? Okay, Sherry, roll call vote, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Item number 10 on our agenda this morning is to adopt the first reading of ordinance of proposed amendment 2022-01 to Marshall County Ordinance number 21, establishing the various voting precincts in Marshall County, Iowa, and defining the boundaries. Nan, could you speak to this, please?
Yes, you all probably think, okay, we already did this. There was a small change in the city of Marshalltown on the maps. 1-1 and 1-2 and Ward 1 got flip-flopped so that we would have had to move, not everybody, because there was a slight change in the lines in that ward, but they flip-flopped them. So the city, we worked with the Secretary of State's office and they made that really administrative correction. And then this is just us adopting it because we just have to include what they're doing in our ordinance.
But we've made no changes to the things that are out in the county, just what's in the
No,
city.
this is just for the city of Marshalltown, and it's just flip-flopping things. We became aware of it during the caucus in February, early February.
Okay.
And that's when they figured out that 1-1 and 1-2 were switched around. Obviously, at that time, it really didn't impact that, luckily, because everybody went to the same place for all the wards, so it didn't impact anything. But I'm glad we learned it then instead of getting to the primary or something.
Do we need to write in the date in the middle here of March 29th? Down about 1, 2,
Yeah, I
3
see
three
that.
paragraphs.
The third whereas.
Did you have the few wave readings today or not?
Okay,
That's, yeah.
let's leave that open for the time being and come back to it in case we waive readings and we can't do that until we're done with this. At this point, I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Chair, I'd move to adopt the first reading of these ordinances.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the first reading of this ordinance. Any further comments, questions, or concerns? There being none, Sherry, roll call vote, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item number 10, This is the possibility of waiving readings of the redistricting ordinance and to adopt this final reading, discussion, and possible action item. Any recommendations?
Since this just is an administrative correction and the people stayed in their same ward, I would recommend doing so. When we made the big change for the entire county, we did waive the third reading. We had two, but we didn't have the third.
Has the city also adopted this?
Yes,
Gone through?
they're done.
So we're just kind of dotting i's and crossing
Yes,
t's.
this is completely administrative and this is completely up to them because of the size of Marshalltown.
Okay. I'll entertain motions on the waiving of readings.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion then to waive second and third readings and adopt ordinance step amendment 2022-01 to chapter 21 Marshall County Ordinance, establishing the various voting precincts in Marshall County, Iowa, and defining their boundaries.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the waiving of the second and third readings and to adopt this ordinance. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? There being none, Sherry, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item number 11 this morning is adopt resolution number 2022-0017, abatement of real estate taxes. This is resolution 22-0017. Garrett, you want to cover this, please?
Yeah, each of these parcels on here are parcels that the city of Marshalltown has taken through the 657A10B. Code of Iowa requires that when they receive those through that code section, that they receive them free and clear of all taxes. And therefore, we have to refund there's two of them that have tax sales, so we refund the tax sales too. So.
And as usual, the vast majority of these taxes are the other bodies and probably fees that go to the city.
Yeah, it's proportioned out, just exactly how the taxes are, but there are a lot of fees there, especially the ones you see, like the 4,001, then a couple 4,000, those are tax sale fees.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to adopt resolution 2022-0017, abatement of real estate taxes as printed.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt resolution number 2022-0017, abatement of real estate taxes as printed. Any further comments, questions, or concerns? There being none, Sherry, roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 12 on our agenda this morning is to approval of Johnson Controls Service Agreement for Marshall County Sheriff's Office, discussion and possible action. Extension of a one-year continuation of the current agreement for the annual sum of $8,696 to be paid annually. The scope will remain the same and the term of this contract will be 8/1/2022 to 7/31/2023. Future annual service costs to be negotiated.
This is something that in the past has been a multi-year agreement, but I think we have a single-year agreement here because it's a little funky with what's going on with the courthouse and new systems being added to it. Basically, it's a service contract for our Metasys software that we use is basically our building automation where we can log in remotely and see what's going on with different HVAC systems. It's something that we do all the time. We've pretty much had my entire career here. So it's my recommendation is just kind of stay the course. We're not doing away with Johnson Controls at any point. We're pretty much tied to the system. So they're a decent company to work with and they have a pretty good software. So no complaints at this point.
This is a system you can even control it from your cell phone, isn't it?
Once the courthouse is upgraded, yes, we will have that capability. This service contract includes the next software update, which has a lot better capabilities for that. I can do it from a computer remotely, but through the cell phone, it's really clunky at this time.
And you're happy with Johnson
Yep.
Controls and everybody else?
Yep.
Okay. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
One more comment. This isn't just the sheriff's office. This is the sheriff's office and the courthouse as well. It's basically the software that transcends the county.
So should we just remove sheriff's office there and just put Marshall County?
I doubt it matters. Sure.
Just strike sheriff's office and leave it as
Yeah.
Marshall County.
That's just always been the address on the agreement, so. it just kinda
Got
comes
it.
through.
Makes sense.
All right. That being said, I'll entertain the motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the Johnson Control Service Agreement for Marshall County. in The annual sum of $8,696 to be paid annually.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this contract. Any further discussion, questions, or comments? There being none, roll call vote, please, Sherry.
Thompson,
Yes.
Slosson,
Yes.
Patton.
Yes.
All right. Item number 13 is the siren project update for incorporated areas. This is discussion.
First, make sure, I guess, just a kind of a note on there that it is the unincorporated and incorporated areas now, so that kind of changed the title. We went together a couple weeks ago and we joined with the cities to do one grant, right? Working still on getting the grant submitted for the hazard mitigation grant. I wanted it submitted 2 weeks ago, but we ran into I don't know if it was a snag, but more of a question. Our VHF system that the fire services were paged out on, used as their radio system, is end of life. That's why we're doing the P25. And so after discussing the sirens with one of the vendors that we're looking at, we realized that VHF is how we send out our signal to the current sirens, and that most sirens are produced with the VHF system in them. So we had to address that. We had a meeting yesterday with, like I said, one of the vendors, just to get some ideas, and with Evan, who was Evan Volk, who was appointed by the Board of Supervisors as a communications expert, basically to talk about some of these other radio issues. And Rhonda, who's the expert at the communications center on and all of that there. We talked about what our options are. So our options are go with the VHF system that's already built into these sirens and get some, they call them either repeaters or the digipeters is what they call them, because it's digital. Yep, and looking at either adding 3 of those to cover our whole county with this siren system. So basically tapping into quote unquote the old system, using the same frequency that we have, the same radio channel that we have, but using it now for the sirens. So it would only be sirens. What's that? Yeah, and having redundancy there. So feel free to butt in, because I know you were there. I didn't catch all of it. So, so we looked at that, and what's the other option is upgrading those sirens to the P25, what we're going to with our radio system. We thought maybe since end of life for VHF, maybe looking into just upgrading to that P25 system would be, even though it'd be expensive, $4,000 to $5,000 per siren to upgrade, be basically putting a radio into each of those sirens to upgrade to that P25. We thought maybe that would be our choice. But after looking at this, and we have not presented it to the full committee, but after looking at the options, there's also another $100,000 to put into a system that has to go into the communication center to help with receiving. If we do a P25, even though we're upgrading to that, it doesn't work with the same voice over system. It works with a digital system. So we'll be presenting tomorrow to the full committee to tell them both those options so they can weigh those out. Ron is also working with Raycom to find out some details on the old system, also how this new system would integrate into the communication center so it works flawlessly for the communications specialists that are pushing the screen rather than walking to another room to try to set off these sirens. We want it to work the same as it does now. So looking at all those details that that I Didn't think about some of those, to be honest, because I don't do the communications center side. Just kind of looking at those. So we need to present those options back to our siren committee. We also have to discuss with Marshalltown how they set off their current sirens now, which is through the VHF system, but we believe it's through their own channel. We're kind of backtracking to make sure that, that's how it works. And also letting them know that, if they're planning on, they did not join the group of cities wanting to upgrade. So if they're wanting to upgrade or wanting to change anything, we need to make sure that they're aware they need to work on that too. So just making those, the only other city that would be affected that is not upgrading would be LeGrand. They have a working siren. They would just have to basically upgrade how the communications is received by that siren. So it wouldn't be a major $2,000 to $3,000 item, not, a $23,000 to $30,000 siren, which they didn't want to get into that type of money. So Marshalltown and LeGrand, we'll be talking with both of them just to kind of let them know as we move forward, what they need to be doing. And that would happen even if we didn't go with a siren project, because the VHF system is end of life. And so they have to look at that anyway.
How about Ferguson? Because they currently set off their own.
Yep, and theirs is a push button right now. They are going with it. They're wanting to be in.
They want to upgrade.
Yep, they're
Okay.
wanting the new one. So I brought in, and you guys can look at this afterwards, you don't have to go through it right now, but I brought in a map that GIS, Melanie put together, population density map for our committee, so that we were able to look at the population densities in the county and compare them with what we had already proposed, looking at areas that we knew had some housing density areas in the county. And then I just basically went through, and the green stickers on there are existing working sirens that are set out by the communication center. And so some of those are within, well, all of those are within city limits of somewhere, because we don't have any unincorporated sirens right now. And then those cities that propose wanting a new siren are dots with yellows. So you'll see some that have green and yellow together. That's basically the siren is there now, but they're upgrading. Some of those cities, like Rhodes, will keep their old siren working, but also put in a new one. So there are some combinations there. And then the pink dots then are the proposed, at this point, proposed unincorporated sirens that we have already gone out and mapped. So we've looked at how the output of that siren will cover an area. There are some areas on there that still show the biggest population density is the over 25 per, I think it's per square mile is how she put it on there. So there you'll see some that we don't have siren mapping for. There's a couple of reasons on there. Either one, they were covered by another siren that we already proposed that would cover that area. Two, they were areas that the houses were spread out so far that one siren would not do as much good as it would in the areas that are proposed. So if the houses are closer together, obviously one siren can get a lot of houses. Where you get a bigger area, the population density that's covered there, we're not able to get as many houses with one siren. So, and then like Harvester, we weren't able to get into there. It's locked with a gate. So we weren't able to get in there to actually look at the areas. We were able to look at the housing area, but we need to look at the whole area to see the topography, so that we needed to be able to do the mapping. So there were a couple of places like that. So we'll take this map. This hasn't fully been proposed or sent to the committee. We did talk about it, but we haven't shown the map yet. So we'll look at this tomorrow. And then we, like I said, we would like to have had the grant already put in, but we need to wait on the information that we just got yesterday to get a little bit more familiar with what are those digipeters or repeaters that we would like to do, what the cost would be. The repeaters that are out in the county right now that are VHF, again, are end of life, so they're basically being scrapped, but there will still be antennas and there will still be cabling in some of those areas. So that will help us a lot with cost on these repeaters that need to be done. The repeaters that work for the sirens aren't as robust. They don't need to be as robust as a voiceover repeater, because they're only doing a digital signal back and forth, sending out to the sirens and then bringing it back. The sirens themselves, and I think I talked about this last time, also somewhat repeat amongst themselves. They receive and then push it out to another. So you actually can use those as repeaters, which is nice. So there's a lot of redundancy there. They'll go through, when we do finally decide on where we want our sirens, they'll do some testing to see, okay, if this one is talking to another one, but for some reason, one of those is not working, weather got it, whatever it might be, it's down for some reason, that we have a back way of going through that too. So it's not just always directly from one siren to another, it can go backwards to another siren. So, yeah, multiple paths.
So
yeah.
if one goes off, they all go off.
Yes
Not
and no.
necessarily, yeah.
We can set it up through multiple paths,
Right.
so it doesn't have to go, if one doesn't work, then the computer recognizes that it needs to go through another path. So
Okay.
there's more than one path, plus depending on what weather is being presented, we can set it off in multiple ways. We can either set off the entire county, or we can set it off in different sections.
Yeah.
You know, as Kim was saying, basically what we're looking at, what a large portion of discussion was yesterday, is we're looking at cost versus benefit. Plus, in tune with that, we're also looking at redundancy and longevity. And so with all of those things together, that's kind of what we're focusing on here, because we've got to have that redundancy. And, you know, there's pros and cons to each one. One of the cons to the P25 system is there's not a lot of redundancy. It's kind of like a one and done, and there's not really a whole lot of backups to it. So that's kind of what that's kind of what we're looking for in that. Because there's a big difference between voice transmissions versus the data transmissions. And in this case, we're looking at data transmissions. So that's where one fails over the other.
You mentioned $100,000 upgrades for your.
That would
Computer
be,
equipment.
if we went to the P25 and upgraded the sirens to what we're upgrading our radio voiceover,
Right.
we would have a minimum of just $100,000 to just install a piece into the communication center.
Right.
Basically changing over that P25 voice to a data.
Right.
So it's kind of like sending a fax over. He gave that example yesterday, how you used to hear those noises. If you pick up the phone and hear that data coming through during a fax, it's kind of that same system that has to go through to set these sirens off. So we would basically divide our county into 4, so quadrants. And so we would be able to set them off in different quadrants. If you notice how weather service, it's either the whole county is under, or it might be southwest, or it might be northeast, or so they really do hone in on where those storms are. And, you know, it might be in the southwest to begin with, and then it moves to the northeast. So we can set off sirens in different parts, but all those sirens can communicate to each other without going off. So it can act as a repeater, but not trigger the siren. So there's a lot of details there. Again, we'll present this tomorrow. We won't have all of our numbers. Like I said, I'd love to get this grant actually written and in. It's written except for this part of the detail. So I need to wait for those numbers. It looks pretty promising on the VHF side. We were a little afraid of, because of our end of life, what we would look at, but again, it's up to the whole committee.
Is this 100,000 part of the grant?
That 100,000 would have to be included in the grant if we did that. And that would be spread evenly out over the cities and the unincorporated, if that's the direction we went with P25. That would not include each siren also being upgraded to a P25 ability. So putting a radio into each one of those, which would be another $4,000 to $5,000 per siren. So there is a lot of cost if we transfer it over to a P25. But again, we're looking at both sides of it. We're gonna weigh it out, make sure we have all the numbers in front of us. But it sounds right now like the VHF is the way to go. But again, it's not my decision. It's a community committee decision.
So at this time, you need no action from us.
I
This is
don't. We're
just an
gonna,
update.
yep, we'll get the grant written here hopefully in another week. And then we'll go out to bid so that we can get some more detailed numbers and then see if we get the grant. And then we'll go from there. So,
Good job.
And then based on the amount that the grant comes out, that will lead us into where we can make modifications.
right.
And who is the grant applicant?
Grant applicant is the board of supervisors. Yep. I'm heading it up for them. And then, like we've talked about in other meetings, Since the city's joined on, that obviously makes the grant application higher. The cities can still pay their own portion. That's not a problem. They can either funnel it through or funnel it directly to whoever the vendor is. It won't really matter at that point. We just have to have one point of who's applying.
And the award date?
We won't know. We don't even have an application date yet. I'm guessing if we applied a couple of weeks ago and we kind of sat down and went through the timeline that the state gave us, it looked like it wouldn't be until after July 1 that we even heard back to know if we have the grant yet. So, and then we have to still go out to bid and we still have to, all those things. So, yeah, exactly. And
So
if
we might be another budget year out on this
Right, it could
anyway.
be, it could be. And you have, what did I say, 56 weeks, I believe is what the grant said. I think I told that last time, but yeah, once we actually get the grant award, if we get the grant award, we still have 56 weeks to actually complete the project.
And my guess is it's an award to happen in September.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's gonna be, by the time we even find out, and then you have to get your bids, and then it's gonna be.
If we get it,
Yeah, if we get it.
we've got plenty of time to get this
Right.
into the next budget, not only for us,
Right.
but all the respective communities also.
I
Correct.
truly
Yeah.
believe that.
So,
And we've discussed that with the cities too. Most of them are in real good standing. There's a couple that were kind of iffy, but they thought that they could definitely get into next year's budget. Yeah, and then we also talked about if we don't get the grant, we're still pursuing the unincorporated areas through the ARPA. So one way or the other, we should see some sirens out in the county, hopefully.
Yeah. Thank you for the update. Appreciate that. Moving on is to item number 14. This item is tabled. I don't think we've got anything to untable.
Let's leave this table.
Okay, leave item 14. Then we're going to move on to item number 15. This is general construction issues and possible motions. Lucas or Nan, have we had any changes with our information that's flowing back and forth?
Yes, and I believe we're gonna need to go into closed session.
Okay,
So I was wondering about doing public forum first.
we'll do that and let everybody go, and then we'll go into closed session.
Yeah,
Let's move on then
I think all of the,
to item number 17, which is public forum. This is a time that's set aside for the public to make comments on topics of county business other than those listed on this agenda. No action will be taken on any of the items brought up in public forum. Anything for the good of the order?
I wanted to let you know, I'm gonna probably reach out to the school district regarding the Orpheum and kind of work on the timeline. Theron, Judy and I spoke in the fall and said that we'd follow up in the spring, and ironically, it's already the end of March. So here we are, and to kind of discuss the transition.
Okay, well, we're past the Ides of March, so we're in good shape.
Yeah, we hope it,
Supposedly.
hopefully it, yeah.
Anybody else under public comment? No? All right, then I'm going to back up in our agenda and go into item number 16. Going to need motions to go into closed session. This is going into closed session per Iowa Code 21.5, possible pending litigation. This is a motion to enter into closed section pursuant to section 21.5, subsection 1, paragraph C of the Code of Iowa to discuss strategy with counsel in matters where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the county in that litigation. Marshall County has an attorney-client relationship with the Office of Marshall County Attorney and Allers and Cooney PC. Entertain motions to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to go into closed session.
Okay, Steve has temporarily stepped out of the room, so I am going to make the second. To go into closed session
10:14.
at 10:14. James, would you cease the recording of our general session and start the one for the closed? And we need a roll call vote, please.
Thompson,
Yes,
Lawson, temporarily, Patton,
Yes.
okay. And we are officially going into closed session at 10:14.